repeat.
Everybody be good.
Okay, 7 o'clock, January 22nd, 2019, call the meeting to order. Item number 1 is minutes of January 8th. For those who were here for that.
Oh, what about you? No, John.
So we'll make a motion for the minutes of the meeting.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor? 301. Minutes of December 27.
No, Jim.
No.
Make a motion to accept the minutes from December 27th,
Second.
2018.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Oh, get that out there.
301. And the minutes from the special town meeting on December 27th.
Make a motion for the special town meeting on December 27th.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor? 301.
Hey.
2 is the warrants.
Motion to sign?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor? 4-0. We'll skip to number 3. Number 4, department head, sorry.
The sand pile and salt pile is, it's going to be close on sand get through the winter with up over 36, 3700 yards so far that we use. And so might have to break in a bit come into the winter, get some more sand out. We're back out pushing roads back again today. We got 3 of them done. And we got a hydraulic pump on the 2000 that's leaking, and we've tightened everything up that's supposed to be tightened, and it's still leaking. So Jeff Lang was going to come look at it and see if he can get parts for it. He doesn't think he can. It's one of the old pumps like was on the Mac that can't get no parts, the shaft and that stuff for us. So he's going to give me a price on what it costs to retrofit it with a new pump if we need to. I'll have that for the next meeting. The pump station 1, the oil, the seals in the front, and the rear main seal, and the motor on the generator is starting to leak. Not real bad, I mean, they're leaking. I haven't got the quotes all back from the people to test the generators yet. Other than that, everything's good in the sewer. I talked to Stacy, there's a house trailer that I would get donated to the fire department so they can do their training and stuff in it. For smoke detection or whatever they do with it for the firefighters. If, sorry to you folks, we put it up to the dump, the old dump, so the fire department can use it for the training and that.
Yeah, it's something worthwhile to.
I mean, after we're done destroying it and stuff like that, I'm sure we can somehow take care of all this afterwards, but it'll be something good for everybody training for the summer.
And the school, the grounds person at the school is wondering if they can buy salt for the sidewalks and stuff through the town, where we buy paper, I guess, through the school.
Yeah,
They did it. She asked how much it was, like we're paying $53 a ton for the salt. And they spend, this year so far, they spent over $900 on the salt. Because they buy it by the 55 gallon pails.
Right.
So, most they use is 2 ton a year. That's what they can use. And if it's already you folks, what they'd like to do is they can get like 40, they got the buckets already, 5 gallon buckets that they've been buying the salt and fill them at 40 at a time. So 40 buckets, they're 50 pounds a piece for a 5 gallon bucket, that'd be a ton. So, told I said, I'd bring it to you folks' attention tonight and see what you thought about it. It'd be quite a savings for the school.
huge savings.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And they do let us go in, we buy our paper
Yeah.
with them,
Oh,
they give us their discount.
yeah. Yeah, oh, absolutely.
Sure.
And that's, like I told her, I says, you know, 2 times that's all you take need, and 40 buckets at a time, and you can store the buckets, and when you need the other 40 filled up, just let me know, and we'll take and have someone in, you fill the 40 buckets up, and you get your 2 times, so. I think that's all I have.
Any questions for the road commissioner? Thank you, chief.
Not a whole lot. I called Northeast Apparatus, they have engine 82, and just waiting a couple miscellaneous parts to come in to finish that up, and that should be ready to go. Otherwise, not a whole lot going on. The compressor up to the North Station is functional and up and running now. I had another outfit come look at it, put the old dump lock back on, he played around with it, and it would work fine for him. And I think, long story short, what eventually happened was when they undid the fitting or the hose to draw out an air sample for the air purifying test, when they went to go screw the hose or the fitting back in, they messed up the threads. So I kind of think they knew about it, another oddity, and they wanted me to buy a new compressor from, but I kept my heels dug in and toes up and refused to buy it until I had somebody else look at it, so it's up and running. Everybody's all happy. We did get called out to a mutual aid fire during the middle of the storm, and they called us off because apparently when the vineyard got up in there, they could only fit 1 truck up there. So they told us not to bother showing up, and they pretty much let it go. Roof was already collapsing when they got on the scene, so. And otherwise than that, knock on wood, it's been fairly decent.
Questions for the chief? Thank you.
Yep, the first thing, we need to, I need to have the board appoint Brenda Garland as emergency. Director.
I make a motion, we appoint Brenda Gallen as emergency management director.
Second. Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor? 3-0-1. How many positions you holding?
I'll sway you in there.
Thank you.
At least somebody else.
6.
See if she can get it.
The auditors are here this week, they started today, so they're running to their call at this point. It's going pretty well. Just hectic week here for the auditors, got to pull everything out, so just to let you know that. The Knott Road and the Biles case will be in conference calls with the judge on February 6th. So I will be down to the court, sitting in on those calls. So we'll see what goes on with that. The judge is still hoping on the Knott Road that they'll come to an agreement. Time will tell. And the Biles case, we'll see what the judge's ruling is regarding the IRS matter, so we'll see what happens with that after February 6th on that. We did have a little issue with Mr. Bloom's house up there. I do believe somebody's been in it. And we'll be following up with that and see what's going on with that. We'll keep a close eye on it. Hopefully the townspeople are watching it also at this point.
Somebody put a game camera or something on there?
Yeah. That's all I have for
Questions for David? No.
Thank you.
Number 5,
Ready time,
sewer commitment.
Yep, sewer commitment is $40,816.45.
Motion to sign.
Motion to minus, motion to sign the sewer commitment.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor? 4-0. Sewer abatement.
Yep, I have one sewer abatement for William Cooney, and it's for $78. There was a meter reading error. In the water district of the meter reading, they put a new meter in it. That's what they did.
Make a motion to sign the sewer abatement for William and Quimby.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor? 4-0.
I believe in your packet.
Discuss and approve the town meeting warrants.
In your packet, you'll have the ones that you had from last time. I'll just go over any changes that we've had, so that you guys can sign them tonight. Article 5 is at 9%. I did meet with the advisory board on Friday, so they've already caught all the changes. So Article 5, I'm assuming you would want to read over that for 9%.
Is there a motion?
So
Moved,
Second.
seconded. Further discussion? All those in favor? 4-0.
And so, John, we've done most of these last meeting.
okay.
So the next one that we need to go to is Article 13. We had tabled that one because Brenda is in emergency management. We were only talking about on that one.
Okay, motion we approve Article 13, amount of $3,155.
Second. Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor? 3-0-1.
And then on to Article 17. You guys didn't vote on the highway budget. You guys wanted to have conversations with all of you here regarding making the seasonal position a full-time position. That money's not in the budget, I believe, if you look at your packet, John. It would have this $28,000 that it would increase the budget by. So we tabled this so you guys could discuss it at this meeting.
Okay, you're recommending that?
I've been asked by a couple different townspeople why that's still seasonal, and because it's always has been, and they want to know if I had work enough to keep it a year round, and I do, got work enough to keep it a full-time position, because it's harder and harder to get people to fill these positions.
Yeah.
And there's town of Skowhegan and a couple other towns that are running short-handed right now. They got trucks packed, and they said if we got someone in that position right now, then why only they can make it a full-time position? I said, well, it's not up to me. It's up to the board. I said, I don't have a problem making it a full-time position because there's plenty of work we've taken for it to be full-time. But it's gonna make the budget go up, so.
Yeah, I'm kind of leery, getting up to 500,000.
Well,
And also, you mentioned that a lot of it is flaggers, and we can get flaggers from that work type of thing for a lot cheaper than paying all the benefits that we have to for
Yeah.
a person put on full time.
so.
I don't have a problem either, but I'm just bringing two folks because I was asked if I would, by the top citizen, so that's why I'm doing it. And yeah, it would be a benefit, but like Alan says, the budget's crawling up, and there'll come a day and we won't have 4 people. And if it comes that day, then that's what happens, so.
It's one of those things that just adds and adds and adds.
Oh, yeah.
It adds, every year it adds.
Yeah.
And next, late July, early August, when we're setting that mill rate.
Right.
And we wish we didn't have to put it up a quarter of a mill.
Yeah.
And I hate to say it, unemployment won't be, 3.5% forever. You know, unemployment rate won't be at 3.5% forever, so. If it comes a time when you have to hire people, they'll be there. So, well, it's a fact, I mean,
Yeah.
It sounds like we want to keep the status quo, and so that would mean okaying the 476 2/3.
Correct.
Can I make a motion to approve the highway budget $476,230.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor? 4-0.
Okay. You can vote, to sign the annual town meeting warrant, but I'll have to go and copy the changes afterwards. So the next one, I think was 34. At the last meeting, Arnold, made a recommendation of, to see if the inhabitants of the town of
No,
Anson.
34 in this packet.
Well, no, sorry, I did
Oh,
it correction.
okay.
Remember, it's not 34 in your packet, I changed it.
Okay.
Just you and Dan.
Yes, in our packet. 34 originally was a, one for the fire department, and we had multiple ones in there, so I removed that one because it was duplicating some of them. And I now put a different one in Article 34 that reads, to see if the inhabitants of the town of Anson will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to negotiate on behalf of the town to inquire about having the storm drains revert back to the town of Anson from the Madison-Anson Sanitary District. Did meet with the advisory board on this also. They already voted on it 501. So I need to know.
501, Moody abstained.
Make a motion to keep the articles, right?
Second.
Moved and seconded.
we make a motion to what?
Keep it what she said.
As written.
That we
Okay,
take
all right,
out.
then we will, okay, yes.
And it was seconded by Brian.
And I'm assuming you're okay with it.
So,
So do we have to give that extra diamond? Sorry, carry on. See how it gets.
All those in favor, before you go any further? 4-0.
Long into that.
we have this,
Hmm?
what we have in-
Correct.
So you guys can, if you want, make a motion to accept it, and I'll go in and print out the new ones and let you sign it.
Make a motion that we accept the warrant for town meeting as updated.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor? 4-0. I see Mr. Tracy is here. We'll go back to number 3.
Please forgive me, folks, I just ran from another meeting, so. Are you ready?
Yep.
We're ready, all right. Good evening, honorable members of the community and board, good evening. Just hand out a newsletter.
Butter and us up.
Yeah, so. If you want to just pass that down, maybe. First order presentation. Hi there.
Oh,
reading pleasure. Take my jacket off and make myself comfortable. You guys have I've got 3 hours, is that what you said I had, Tammy?
The last 2 hours and 40 minutes, you'll be by yourself.
Took a hint, all right. Good evening, everyone. Mike Tracy, excuse me, I can't talk, I'm the school superintendent. Year 2 for me, I'm loving the job, things are going well. School district's intact, and I think we're making some nice strides forward with the school district. I just wanted to present real quickly to you folks and allow you to ask me questions. It is early in the budget season. Last year I came out in the fall to sort of give you this pitch. Now it's, by the time I made it out, it's winter. A year later, just to remind you of the budget process, to talk about a couple of things that go into the budget process, tell you where we're at, I think sort of the status of the district, and what you can potentially expect going forward is what I'm looking to do tonight. Just a reminder, I'll just give you what's in this little packet. I gave it out my nice little winter newsletter to highlight a few things. One of the things I point out in that newsletter, which I didn't give you folks, but sorry, but it's online, and the front page talks about sort of the state of public education over the last 100 years and the cost of education over the last 100 years as we've added and added and added and added from the old reading, writing, arithmetic. Anyway, because I'm being videoed, I'll save any snide remarks about that.
So what does it cost to educate a student in your district?
We are, the latest that the Department of Education put out was $17,000 a student. I don't believe those numbers are accurate, only because they include state retirement, they include debt service, they include federal monies that we redistribute out to other districts. So my guess is we're in the neighborhood of between $12,000 and $13,000 a student, which is slightly over the state average of about 10 to 11,000. And I could go on and on about why I think small rural districts are always going to be above state average, because it costs more to educate per pupil. The smaller your district is, the larger your district is, the less expensive it is to educate a student. So a couple things that I have is the timeline. I want to make sure you know that you are always invited along the budget, school district budget pathway, the timeline, and there are 3 consecutive Wednesdays in March that you need to come out if you're interested in the school budget, or would like to have input into the school budget process, or at least listen to the school committee, the school board talk about potential additions and deletions from the school budget. Happens in March. And I want you to make sure you're invited to that process. And the last thing is our last report from this past year's audit, and those are where the dollars and cents are in real time in last year's budget. And that's what this pretty little colorful pie chart shows you, is exactly where those dollars and cents are spent, according to our audit report. So keeping in mind, going back to the first page, the 2 things that influence your school district's budget, state allocation, the money we receive from the state, are number 1, the number of students in your school district. Over last year, we're down 1 student, which is not bad. From the year prior, we were down, I want to say 13, does that sound right, David? Yeah. 12 or 13. So over the last 2 years, we're down just under 15 students. Keep in mind, the way school districts run, and it's different than thinking about running your local small business, okay? We run not on a revenue surplus, we're not on profit margin, we're not trying to make dollars and cents in schools. We get paid per the number of students in our schools. So that's important to keep in mind, that as school district decreases in size, we get less dollars and cents from the state. The other thing to keep in mind, and this is where you guys usually, the municipalities throw things at me, so I probably should run. is how much the state says you, as a towns, need to contribute towards public education. That's the state valuation. That's how much the mill rate is. The state dictates that based on the local valuations. And I have that, the proposed is up just under $1 million in Anson. 135 million last year, 136 million is what your state valuation is. You can thank your legislators, I think they do a great job for us. Keep in mind that they changed, legislation changed last year. Instead of having a 3-year average of per pupil enrollment, we were down to a 2-year average per pupil enrollment. The other thing they did is they decreased from a 3-year state valuation average to a 2-year. And so what that does is a 3-year helps mediate the dollars and cents. Now that we've gone to a 2-year average, you have a little bit more of this. So what I would love to be able to tell you is that state valuations were down. I'd love to be able to believe home sales and so forth. According to the state, according to what the state says your town's valued at, home property valuations, they're saying property values are up, so thus they're saying Anson can contribute more. And by the way, they're saying that across the entire district. Every town is up. Every town is up this year. Which being this close to Madison, I really find that hard to believe, since the mill's out but they're still saying home values are up in spite of the loss of the economy. So those two factors don't look good for the state subsidy allocation, but you needed to know that. Okay, so any questions on that? The timeline, which I have already talked about, is attached. And just to keep in mind again, I'm already working on the budget. I've been meeting with my department heads and principals already to talk about school budgets. And we're doing the best we can to hold the line. We really, last 2 years, have made some considerable cuts across the district. 2 years in a row, it was in the neighborhood of 300 to 350,000 cut out of the budget 2 years in a row. Without editorializing that, there's been a lot of things we've been in a holding pattern on. Paper, pencils, textbooks, and so forth. That I'm certainly going to see an increase, a little increase there for next year, just because of what I just told you. The current budget, I froze the budget last year. Things were not great from an economic or financial standpoint. As far as the district was concerned, at one point I was concerned that having enough money, cash flow was low at one point in the school year, so I froze the budget. And between that and we ended up having a little more tuition money and some restructuring savings, we were able to bring in over a $300,000 cash, what I call it's a carry forward. So in the past, the school budget has had to use money from the savings account to pay the operating, pay for the checking account side, the operational side of the budget. Hopefully, it looks like we're not going to have to do that this year. That we may, so hopefully any additions in our local, so what that means is, let me translate. What that means is any addition to our school district budget will be real additions. There'll be additions because of payroll or raises. There'll be additions because we've declared as a school board that we need X, Y, or Z. Okay? That's good. That's good. Not like the last couple of years where I feel like we had to increase the budget to get less. We increased the budget last year, if you remember. I was out here telling you we had to make up for a couple of years of, I think, lack of
Can I ask you a question?
oversight.
You have a hold of $300,000?
We have a unspent money now. So that means, yeah, and when I say that, that means we had budgeted for positions that we restructured. So we had a savings. We had almost $60,000, I think, that came in tuition, unanticipated tuition revenue.
Okay.
And then a little bit, and then the rest of it, probably $150,000, because I froze the budget.
So
and we
how
didn't
much was
spend.
in that account before this was in?
It was projected to be a negative 46. Okay? So based on some factors that I had oversight, there was some savings, and then I got lucky in 2 other places. And before I got here, the board had restructured some of those positions that I talked about, and that causes savings too. Okay? So, I went through, I feel like we're in a far more financially healthy position than the school district was in last year at this time, when I came out to see it. So that's good, okay? That's good news. Okay, so what influences spending? This gets into what influences the increases to the budget. And one of the exercises we've gone through this fall, in fact, I think, Mr. Bryant, I think you were part of that process, was strategic planning. The school committee and myself invited multitude of stakeholders in. We had about 50 people. One of your selectmen was involved. And we invited folks from across the district in to talk about what are we lacking in RSU 74? What do we do well and what are we lacking? And then we talked about future trends, things like technology and preparing students for careers that haven't been created yet and so forth. And what do we think we need going forward? So throughout that exercise, we've come up with basically 4 themes. They're in that newsletter. Somewhere in that newsletter I wrote about those. And they're right here. They're also on this form. Thank you. Thank you for pointing that out. I wrote this a month ago, so I can't believe it was right. The 4 themes emerged. One was engaging the community more. So how can we involve yourselves and folks in the schools more? Creating more opportunities for students. One of the things that has, without a doubt, affected your high school, has been the cutting of programs year after year after year to make budget. So one of the things succinctly that I don't mind speaking about it here because it came out as a glaring concern is the fact we don't have a performing arts program at all. No music, no band, no drama, none of that at our high school. We have a few students that we've bussed over to do some chorus at Madison, but that has been the extent of our programming. So I anticipate this year the board looking to improve in that area. That's an example. There were other glaring things that came out about promoting more life skills, career and technical skills, some of those soft skills like team building and writing a check and how to change a tire. Some of those things that we all learned maybe that some folks believe we should bring back to the school site. That we probably can do those without huge increases to the budget. So more student opportunities, promoting a healthier and safer school learning environment, everything from more wellness, understanding healthier and safer lifestyles. We have a tremendous amount of trauma across our district, and when I say that, that's everything from students currently living in crisis to a mixture thereof. So us as staff learning more about how to advocate and help folks under those circumstances, as well as creating more an environment for that supports that. And the last thing is just an increase in student achievement. And I think that speaks for itself. So as I've told everyone, some of these things are things that we can do internally and things that we can be working on that will have very little price tag value, okay? Some of these things will be programmatic or personnel increases if the board so chooses to do that. So just for things that you need to be aware of, earlier when I talked about real costs or real increases, it will probably come out of what emerged out of some of that work that created a strategic plan going forward. And then, so the last thing I would say is that I think we're in a financially better position. I continue to work and try to find ways with the administrative team to tweak and work programs that we exist, to get the job done with existing dollars and cents as much as we possibly can. And ultimately, I think that we can create a path forward that is going to be sustainable. That's my goal. And ultimately, it's always, as I said, it's the school board's decision, so if you know folks on the school board and you want to have influence into that budget, make sure that you reach out to board members. What else can I answer for questions?
When it comes to like the performing arts programs, are there grants that might be available?
Yes, I think one of the things, MDI, the Maine Dance Institute, is something that we've done in this district for a long time, and it's sort of over the last couple of years had slowed down, and with the retirement of sort of the teacher last year, we took that as an opportunity. I say we, because I was involved with that, as an opportunity to cut that. And that was sort of the last of our K-12 efforts. We do have, we have a wonderful K-8 elementary music teacher who's really doing a phenomenal job. So yes, there are some things that we can do grant-wise. There's always, what I find with grants, more likely, are startup funds. And so there might be grants for programming or curriculum or equipment, those kinds of things. Very rarely do I see grants paying for a person. So I think as what I see coming out of this would be an addition of a teacher, probably at the high school level for that purpose, or a K-12 person. But yes, and certainly we're going to be looking at that if that gets approved.
So you want to add the arts, but yet you cut MDI?
Yeah.
I guess I don't understand that one.
No, it's a great comment. I mean, at the end of the day, we were scrapping for, every dollar and cents last year. And the other thing, frankly, was that MDI, the program in itself, was sort of petering. And I'm not trying to blame anybody, but it was just, I think for myself, I'm going to speak for myself, it was an opportunity for us to save $25,000 or $26,000 last year when we needed to. And then hopefully that we have an opportunity to rebuild that. That would be my goal as a result of that.
We also lost a person who was running it, pretty much, right?
Yes, she was retiring last year. So
Yeah, there are other people that,
Yeah.
so. No, it's just the concept of
Yeah,
wanting to do more, but yet you cut the things that are already there, that's all. So-
yeah, we need, Mr. Smith, we needed to cut $350,000 last year to bring you only a $400,000 increase. So we had originally had a $750,000 increase is what I'm trying to share. So we cut a lot of things beyond MDI.
So how do you bring those things back in and still have the cuts? I mean,
Yeah, how you do that in a sustainable way will be for me to look other places in the budget to find some cuts that will hopefully, maybe through some attrition if we have some retirements. And it's called retirement savings. So if folks retire, then there's usually some savings from that, just by the nature of the price tag on a veteran teacher versus a new teacher. So I can't give you one
no,
solid answer, just to say,
just asking a question. But
No.
That's all.
it's a great question, and it was just, it wasn't the only thing cut. There were a bunch of things cut last year.
I just had a little bit of in on that, that's all. I mean,
Yeah.
my wife participated in it in a number of years, and, whether it came or went, I didn't really care, but I was forced to go. And it was enjoyable. It was
Yes.
very, very enjoyable, and the kids seemed to enjoy it.
Yeah.
And I'm just speaking of that one thing because it's the one thing I know.
Yeah.
But my point was, you're gonna bring in some more some more of the arts by cutting out arts. You know,
Yeah.
Which, and Sandy, one man, you have a board too.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, this is,
Well, it was. Why couldn't you stay at a freeze this year and see where you are again?
Could we freeze our budget?
Again,
Yeah, we could.
I mean, you made that much up with one freeze. What can you do with two freezes? To get, so
Well,
people's taxes can.
Yeah, you know, it's funny because I'm taking another financial class this semester. It's funny because it's very similar to the class I took 12 years ago to get my master's degree. And one of the founding things out of the 85 pages I was supposed to read for this week is that I'm supposed to be the chief advocate for children in your community. And it's hard for me to do that when I know you have 93-year-old people trying to pay taxes. So I sit and try to be balanced with my recommendations. So it would be hard for me as your chief educator to advocate for two freezes in a row, unless I financially needed to. So without getting political with who's now in the Blaine House and so forth, I think that there's probably going to be some money in education over the next few years. Where that comes from and who has to pay for that ultimately is going to be up to the rest of the taxpayers. So I'm really trying not to be political here. So in the long run, I want to really try to advocate to the board for educational opportunities for students in a sustainable way. So I want to have a high school that has a performing arts program, for example, and if that's a cost on one teacher to achieve that, that may be what we need to do to be able to bring that piece back.
But you can't,
Because in the past, they had a great program up there.
They did.
It's a damn shame that
but you can't work with Madison,
We certainly can't. We are working with Madison.
so it isn't something that you couldn't continue working with
Oh,
and
absolutely.
keep adding, you've already got a teacher over there.
Yeah, what we're finding is, and that's a great question, is, and we are working with Madison on quite a few projects, is that we run a bus all year. It started out to be 5 or 6 kids, back and forth first period, and we're down to 2, and I'm not even sure those 2 are still attending Madison. We've had 2 or 3 of Madison students come to Kennebec High School first period as well. So there's been some effort, but we don't see the interest of the student to do that.
So
that's-
you're telling me you don't have enough students to do the program with Madison, why do you think you're gonna have a program at Carabette?
That's what he said.
Well, no, that isn't what I'm
No?
saying. I'm saying I've got 16 8th graders that are interested in band this year that have no place to go next year. That's,
Even with Madison?
we would have to bus them over, and that's an option. I mean,
And what is the cost of busing them versus hiring a teacher?
Well, there's a couple. There's more than just that simple dynamic of is it $20,000 to bus them over versus $50,000 for a teacher. Is what I just said earlier in my comment was that we have a less of student interest in wanting to do that. So now, if that's their only option, I suppose that would be their only option. But the other piece is then you have to also lock them into first period, and we're having problems with it just being first period. Because otherwise, we'd have to run shuttles all day long between school schedules. Which again, we could do. Those are all options. But with the surveys that I've conducted with students, there's less interest for us to do that. And believe me, it was something that last year I was really pushing that venue, that avenue of sharing some staff members and certainly. But you have to have interest on both sides of the river. It can't be just be interested in doing it. We are sharing some athletic programs. We have 2 grants that we're sharing: alternative ed program, STEM program, and those things that currently are saving us money because we're using federal, state grant monies to do those. Good questions, though, great questions.
So you got athletic programs that you're doing right now between the two schools?
Right, but not music.
And we've got, well, band we are, but I don't see the interest there. We also started our own choral and band program before school this year, because we run the Cobra Tower, and we've been trying to do that venue, and I'm not seeing a major take, a major interest in that.
So if you started the program, and maybe Madison would bus over,
We certainly can invite them to participate in our,
so would that come to cost?
if they did, if they participated, we can. I haven't explored sharing that staff member yet with Madison, but it's an opportunity.
Sorry.
No, that's a great question. Great questions. And you know, what I find too in this position, just not as easy as like, we're just gonna do that. There are oftentimes barriers to a lot of things I wanna do, you know.
People in general,
So if there's, I wasn't gonna go there, but
You want-
if there is not enough interest between the two schools, why are you promoting it in Carraback? That there's not enough interest in?
There's not enough interest in the participation on each side of the river. Like during the day, what I'm finding is, particularly the younger students, when I say that, I mean 9 to 10. When I did a survey, it was very small percentage of students. I think there were maybe 14 students across the entire high school that said they'd be interested in taking courses. And we named courses like bioengineering, or courses that maybe three courses that we have that they wouldn't, and 3 courses that they have that we don't have. And like I said, it was about we just tried this year. We had about 14 students in the beginning of the year, and we're down to a couple of stragglers. I'm not even sure we have any students going over there anymore. And I think we're down to 2 or 3 Madison students that are there at high school. And we've been running the bus all year first period for that purpose. So I'm not sure how to, you know what I'm saying? I'm just not sure how to fix that problem.
So the kids just don't want to ride the bus and go over there?
Yeah, I think what I'm hearing is, I'm hearing some of that, and I'm also hearing, for whatever reason, they want to stay in their home high school, many of them. And knowing the dynamics of the communities, I'm not sure that ought to surprise you. I don't mean any disrespect, but I'm just saying how it is.
Listen, I went to Madison.
And there's nothing wrong with either high school.
Yeah, I went
There's
to
nothing wrong with either high school. And I just bought myself a really nice green Cobra jacket to start wearing. But there's nothing wrong with either high
I think that
Times change.
times is changing and you need to,
school. Yeah. Well, it's interesting, financially, and again, I told you, it's nice to talk to people across the state. I can share sentiment. There's folks at Skank and Shed High School. You guys know where that is? Millinocket, East Millinocket, Skank and Shed High School. Each of those schools have about 150 students in each. Each of those schools were built out for over 500 each. And during the mill days, there were that many students.
and
in
they
each
could.
of those. And they could. They could afford it. But now when they talk about sharing or merging high schools, there's a barrier to folks doing that right now. And that's,
There are some communities that have it though.
there's a lot of community.
Roughly in Mexico.
Yeah, and J. Livermore Falls, Spruce Mountain. Right now, there's a K-16 campus being built. K-16, that's going to be aligned with UMFK it's going to St. Agatha, St. Agatha, Fort Kent, Madawaska, very separate communities have come together to create one K-16 high school. So there are places across the state that are beginning to look at doing that, and fortunately or unfortunately, the state rewards that. That's what the state wants to happen. So when we see people get on board to do that, they're gonna have a brand new K-16 campus up there. I'm a little jealous. But I'm just jealous that that's the kind of money they have, that they're gonna be able to do
But
something.
I mean, the football team does really well.
Yes,
They
There's-
do
there-
along great.
There's a
it's
number,
not the kids.
there's a number of wonderful, wonderful things going on between the two districts, absolutely. And I don't mean to sound negative. I'm sharing the negative with you because those are the barriers I run up against when I try to do some things. I work very closely with the superintendent in Madison, Mrs. Levesque. Our administrative team, tomorrow, we have a shared professional development. All of the teachers in Madison are coming over to work with our teachers tomorrow afternoon after the early release. We have some wonderful things going on, and they're working on STEAM and STEM and RTI at the middle school, and standards-based assessments at the high school, and the departments are working together. It's just a wonderful thing to see. The educators are doing that. And we met 2 months ago, I think it was October, our staff went over to Madison to do the same. So there's a lot of great stuff going on the ground level, on the operational level. Any other thoughts or questions?
So when you did a survey for the kids, what kind of questions did you ask? Like, did you ask what they wanted to see?
Would you
in
be
the programs?
Would you be interested in taking XYZ courses? If the XYZ courses were offered at another school, would you take them? Some of them said yes. If you were to actually, we're going to do this and we're going to sign up tomorrow. And then by the time you trickle it down to the actual who's going to sign up, you get down into the teens.
Has any of the kids thought interest in like any type of fire science or public safety type aspect?
There is a degree of interest, and we see a lot of those kids filter into Jobs for Maine graduates or the technical center. And I think we just,
I'm gonna say, because I've got 11 firefighters, not 12 firefighters, including myself. I graduated in 1990. We're all in the fire service.
yeah.
That came from Caravan.
Yeah, I don't know, we don't have a fire service type course at our high school.
I know they looked into it back, I talked to an instructor last week. They said they tried to implement a firefighter 1 and 2 instructor into the high schools to see if the kids would be interested in pursuing something like that.
Well, we certainly at any time would have anybody in to visit and do that kind of, but I thought you were asking, do we have a class like that?
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, that's what they were trying to implement.
No, I think there's a public safety class at the tech center in Skowhegan, and we send kids to Skowhegan for that. I'm not sure how many are in that.
Is there any opportunity to send kids to Mount Luke rather than Skowhegan? Is that, because they have a fire program, they have their own fire truck.
No, we haven't.
Is it possible?
It would be possible. We haven't, it's not it hasn't been a traditional venue, our students, we've been potted to go.
Well, it's county doesn't rule, but
Yes, sir.
we bought two.
Yeah.
Two Franklin County towns, it's not like it's.
No, certainly if a parent were to be interested in that with a child, and they could get them there, I'm sure we can.
The distance from North Anson to Skowhegan is not the same.
It's here.
Distance department.
And we haven't explored that.
And they've got fantastic tech school over there.
They're building a new school.
It's beautiful.
Anything else I can answer? I appreciate your questions. They haven't been very easy tonight, but they're good.
Sorry.
No, they're good questions. And I mean, yeah. And maybe I didn't express myself as well as I could. It's your school committee, Tammy's on school board. They really are working hard to try to provide the best opportunities to kids, and they are awful mindful of those local increases. So some solutions to overhaul some of the governance structure and that loss of local control has seemed to be we obviously last year talking about the AOS and where did that discussion go. There's some communities have sort of believed that there wouldn't be any initial savings to uniting the governance structure instead of having one superintendent, for example. But again, we're doing some things internally this year with some of our departments that may incur a small cost up front next year, but my belief is there's going to be some long-term savings with something I'm going to be presenting to my board. So sometimes you have to invest a little to save a little on the, 2 or 3 years down the road or more. But, okay?
All right.
Thank you for your time, everyone. Have a good night.
So number 8 is selectmen concerns.
I'm sure you're working on it, but some of the corners are getting back to really tall. Like on the end of the horseback, to look down the river road. Try to laugh. Horseback. You can't see. We have to, and you probably already know this, you have to really almost pull in the road to be able to see a blind spot there. So, and I'm sure you're working on it, you've got a lot of that going on, so.
We had the grader, dump truck, and the 110 out today. Because now it's 12 hours after the storm, we have to clean every driveway that go by. Either we have to pick the wing up, so then you get a blind spot because people are pushing snow out of the road now. So it just gets it further out into the travel lane. So I've been passing the paper out as I go by and telling them you can either abide by the state law or you pay a $190 fine when the blue guy comes next time. Yeah. And the bucket loader's been up pushing back and the grader is just, that's all we did last week to get prepared for the storm. And now we're back at it again to take care of it, so.
Driveway is one thing, those intersections, the active
Yeah.
intersections are really dangerous because you have to pull out into them before you know it, somebody's coming.
Right,
No, I understand it, you're working on it.
there's 4 pieces of equipment that's going, and it was 5 today, so everybody within a piece of equipment, and I've covered 148, Pease Hill Road, and Hilton Hill, and then we gotta go back out and straighten and treat the roads again. So tomorrow morning at 6 o'clock, I'm gonna land in the grader again, and the Horseback Road is the first road I'm headed to, so.
It wasn't a criticism, it's just, I'm sitting up in an Escalade. I
Yeah.
can imagine what those little cars are doing, trying to see down 201A, and it
Yeah.
wasn't a criticism, I assure you.
No.
You guys do a great job on the roads, I had no complaints there.
Say, by the end of the week, I should have all the tire roads and intersections all.
Isn't it supposed to snow again?
It's the rain.
It's gonna rain hot water, right?
Yeah.
Something burning somewhere.
Yeah.
It's not supposed to be rain. It's not even gonna be nice.
I'm done.
Public session. Number 10.
Adjourn.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all those in favor? 4-0.
No discussion.
Did you want to say